The homecoming storm, the wheels of the plane touched down on familiar soil, but Celeste Romano felt anything but at home. Her hands trembled as she adjusted the baby carrier strapped to her chest, while 3 more identical car seats surrounded her like a fortress of innocence. 4 pairs of bright green as exact replicas of their fathers stared up at her with curiosity rather than the anxiety that gnawed at her stomach. 5 years. 5 long years since she'd fled this city, with nothing but heartbreak and a secret growing inside her. Now she returned with 4 secrets, each one a living testament to the love she'd once believed was real. "Mommy, airplane loud," whispered little Noah, the most talkative of her quadruplets at 4 years old. His siblings, Ma, Lucas, and Ma. Sophie nodded in agreement, their matching dark curls bouncing with the movement. "I know, sweetheart. We're going to see someone very important," Celeste managed, though her voice caught on the words. "How do you explain to 4-year-olds that they're about to meet the father who doesn't know they exist?" The terminal buzzed with the usual chaos of international arrivals, but Celeste's trained eye immediately spotted the difference. Cameras, too. Many cameras for a regular Tuesday afternoon. Her pulse quickened as she realized they weren't here for some celebrity sighting. They were positioned near the VIP lounge, exactly where Damian Cross, tech billionaire and her former husband, would be conducting business. She should have known. Even after all these years, Damian's every move still made headlines. Cross Industries had only grown more powerful in her absence, expanding from innovative software to artificial intelligence that was reshaping entire industries. The boy she'd fallen in love with in college had become a titan of technology, worth more than some countries' GDP. Celeste maneuvered the stroller through the crowd. Her designer luggage a splurge she couldn't afford but needed for appearances trailing behind. She'd spent her last savings on first-class tickets, knowing she'd need every advantage when facing Damian again. The children deserved to meet their father properly, not as some desperate woman begging at his office door. As she approached the VIP lounge, her breath caught in her throat. There he was. Damian Cross stood with his back partially turned, his tall frame impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her rent. His dark hair was shorter now, more refined, but she could still see the man who used to run his fingers through it when he was thinking. He was speaking to someone, his deep voice carrying that familiar authority that had once made her feel so protected. Then he turned slightly, and Celeste saw her. Victoria Sterling, if the tabloids were correct, stunning, successful, and standing close enough to Damian that her perfectly manicured hand rested on his arm. The woman threw her head back, laughing, at something Damian had said, her auburn hair catching the terminal's harsh lighting like fire. The scene hit Celeste like a physical blow. Here she was, exhausted from years of raising 4 children alone, wearing her best dress that still showed the strain of sleepless nights and financial worry. There was Damian, looking like he'd stepped off the cover of a business magazine, with a woman who clearly belonged in his stratosphere. "Mommy sad." Emma's small voice pierced through her spiraling thoughts. Celeste forced a smile for her daughter, but it was too late. The paparazzi had found their angle. Camera flashes erupted, around them like lightning. The previously organized terminal descended into chaos as photographers pushed forward, shouting questions she couldn't process over the roar of blood in her ears. "Is that Damian Cross's secret family? How long have you been hiding those children? What's your response to his relationship with Victoria Sterling?" Ow! Damian's head snapped up at the commotion. Across the sea of flashing lights and pushing bodies, their eyes met for the first time in 5 years. The recognition was instant, devastating. She watched his face cycle through shock, disbelief, and something that might have been hope before. His gaze dropped to the 4 small faces peering out from behind her legs. His mouth opened, but no words came. Victoria's hand tightened on his arm, her smile faltering as she followed his stare. The woman was beautiful, Celeste had to admit, but more than that, she looked like she belonged beside Damian in a way Celeste never had. Security materialized around them, trying to control the growing crowd, but the damage was done. Phones were recording, cameras were clicking, And somewhere in the chaos, Celeste heard Lucas start to cry. She scooped him up, her maternal instincts overriding her emotional paralysis. "It's okay, baby. It's okay." But it wasn't okay. Nothing about this was okay. Damien started moving toward her, his powerful stride cutting through the crowd like he was parting the sea itself. Victoria followed, her heels clicking rapidly on the marble floor. The closer he got, the more Celeste could see the changes 5 years had wrought. Fine lines around his eyes that spoke of stress and sleepless nights. A hardness to his jaw that hadn't been there when they were young and stupidly in love. Celeste. Her name fell from his lips like a prayer and a curse combined. She lifted her chin, drawing on reserves of strength she'd built during every lonely night. Every difficult decision, every moment she'd had to be both mother and father to their children. "Hello, Damien. We need to talk." The cameras captured it all, the recognition, the tension, the 4 beautiful children who shared their father's unmistakable features. By tomorrow, the world would know that billionaire Damien Cross had a secret. Family and Celeste Romano would be thrust into a spotlight she'd never wanted. But as she looked at her children's faces, confused and overwhelmed by the chaos around them, she knew she'd face any scandal, any judgment, any heartbreak, if it meant giving them the father they deserved. Even if that father was standing arm in arm with another woman, looking like her return was the last thing he'd ever expected. Corporate warfare, the boardroom at Cross Industries, had never felt more like a battlefield. Damien sat at the head of the polished mahogany table, facing 12 of the most powerful people in the tech industry, and half of them wanted his head. The morning news played silently on the wall-mounted screens, cycling through images of him, Celeste, and the children at the airport, each headline more sensational than the last. "The merger with Zenith is dead," announced Margaret Wheeler, the silver-haired chairwoman of the board. Her voice carried the weight of 40 years in corporate warfare. "Their CEO called an hour ago. They're citing unforeseen complications regarding leadership stability. $12 billion. Gone." "Furthermore," continued Richard Blackwood's voice through the conference call speaker, "my sources tell me that Cross Industries stock has dropped 18% in pre-market trading. Investors don't like uncertainty, Damien, especially when it involves secret families and questions about a CEO's judgment." Damien kept his expression neutral, though inside he was calculating the devastating impact. Richard had been patient, waiting years for the right moment to strike. A sex scandal, corporate merger falling through, and questions about family values were exactly the combination he needed to turn the board against their own CEO. "With respect," Marcus interjected from his seat to Damien's right, "we're talking about my brother's personal life, not his business acumen. Cross Industries has tripled in value under his leadership. Personal life." Richard's laugh was sharp through the speaker. "He allegedly has 4 children he knew nothing about. Either he's lying about not knowing, which makes him dishonest, or he genuinely didn't know, which raises serious questions about his judgment and personal relationships. How can we trust him with billion-dollar decisions if he can't manage his own family?" Dr. Patricia Kim, the board's longest-serving member, leaned forward. "There's also the matter of the original scandal 5 years ago. Corporate espionage allegations that were never fully resolved. Those charges were dropped," Damien said, speaking for the first time since the meeting began. "Because your wife disappeared before the investigation could be completed," Richard countered smoothly. "She's back, conveniently after you've become one of the wealthiest men in America. The timing raises questions." "The timing," Marcus said coldly, "coincides with our biggest merger announcement. That's not coincidence, it's sabotage." Before Richard could respond, Damien's assistant knocked and entered. "Sir, there's been a development. The media has discovered Mrs. Romano's hotel. They're surrounding the building." Damien's blood ran cold. Celeste and the children were trapped. "This is exactly what I'm talking about," Margaret said, shaking her head. "This circus is going to destroy our reputation. We need damage control. Not more drama." "I'll handle it." Damien stood, but Richard's voice stopped him. "You'll make it worse. Every time you're seen with this woman, it validates the scandal. I'm calling for an immediate vote of no confidence." "You can't," Marcus began. I can, and I am. Board members, I'm asking you to consider whether Damien Cross is still fit to lead this company. We have shareholders to protect, employees to consider, and a reputation to maintain. The room erupted in competing voices, but Damien was already moving toward the door. Whatever happened to his company, he wouldn't let Celeste and his children face the media wolves alone. The Grandview Hotel was under siege. News vans lined the street, reporters shouted questions at anyone entering or leaving, and camera drones hovered outside the upper floor windows despite hotel security's protests. Celeste stood in her suite, watching the chaos below while her children ate lunch, blissfully unaware that they were the center of a media storm. "Mommy, why are there so many cars outside?" Noah asked, his 4-year-old curiosity undaunted by the strange situation. "Just some busy people, sweetheart. Finish your sandwich." Her phone buzzed with another call from a reporter. She'd stopped answering hours ago, but they kept trying. Worse, someone had leaked her room number hotel security had intercepted. 3 different people trying to get to her floor, including one photographer who'd posed as room service. A soft knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. "Mrs. Romano, it's Detective Torres, NYPD. I'm here about the security situation." Celeste opened the door to find a woman in her 40s, badge displayed, with kind eyes and an air of competence. That immediately put her at ease. "Mr. Cross requested additional protection for you and the children," Detective Torres explained. "The media attention has crossed some legal boundaries: harassment, trespassing, potential endangerment of minors." "Is that really necessary?" Celeste asked, though part of her was relieved. "I've seen situations like this before. When powerful men are involved, the stakes get higher and people get desperate for stories." Torres glanced toward the children. Beautiful kids. They deserve to feel safe. As if summoned by their conversation, the elevator chimed, and Damien emerged with 2 security guards. He looked haggard, his usually perfect appearance showing cracks around the edges. "How bad is it downstairs?" Celeste asked. "Bad enough that I had to use the service entrance." He knelt down as the children noticed him, their faces lighting up with the innocent joy of meeting someone new and important. "Are you our daddy?" Sophie asked, with the directness only a 4-year-old could manage. The question stopped Damien cold. Celeste watched emotions play across his face: wonder, fear, desperate hope. Yes, I think I am. You're very tall," Emma observed solemnly. "And you're very beautiful," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. Lucas, always the shy one, hung back behind Celeste's legs, but Noah was already showing Damien his toy airplane. "It goes really fast, like the one we came on to see you." For a moment, the chaos outside faded. This was what Celeste had dreamed of her children meeting their father, simple and natural and right. Then Damien's phone rang, shattering the moment. "The vote is in an hour?" Marcus's voice was tense. Richard's got Wheeler and Kim on his side. "Dr. Patterson is wavering. We need you here." "Not leaving them again," Damien said, his eyes on the children. "If you lose the company, you lose everything. Your ability to provide for them, to protect them, everything you've built." Detective Torres stepped forward. "Actually, there might be another option. I've been investigating the media leak. How they found out about the hotel, the room number, the children's names. Someone with inside access is feeding information to the press." "What are you suggesting?" Celeste asked. "This isn't random opportunistic journalism. Someone is orchestrating this coverage, making sure it hits at the most damaging moments. The same someone who probably tipped off Richard Blackwood about when to make his move." Damien's expression darkened. "You think this is corporate espionage? Think someone wants you destroyed, and they're using your family as ammunition?" Torres pulled out a tablet, showing them screenshots of social media posts. "Look at the timing. Each story, each photograph, each revelation, they're perfectly timed to cause maximum damage to your business." "Jonathan Pierce," Celeste whispered. "It has to be. He's the only one who could coordinate something like this." Pierce disappeared. "After our partnership dissolved, no one's seen him in 2 years? That doesn't mean he's not pulling strings." Detective Torres sat down, her expression serious. "Mrs. Romano, I need to ask you about the original evidence that destroyed your marriage." Those photographs, the documents, do you have any idea how they might have been fabricated? Celeste felt the old pain resurface, but she forced herself to think clearly. Jonathan had access to everything: Damien's office, his computer systems, his personal files. He could have staged the photographs, planted the evidence, orchestrated the whole thing. But why? Damien asked. He was my best friend, my business partner. We were making millions together. Some people aren't satisfied with millions when they think they deserve billions, Detective Torres said grimly. Mrs. Romano, you said? Your sister helped you disappear. Is there any chance Pierce tracked you down before now? A chill ran down Celeste's spine. There was. It's last year in London. I thought I saw him at the children's school. But it was from a distance, and I convinced myself I was being paranoid. We need to assume he knows everything about you, where you've been, how you've lived, possibly even that you were planning to return. Torres stood up. This isn't just about destroying a marriage anymore. It's about destroying a man and stealing his empire. Damien's phone buzzed with another call, but he ignored it. Instead, he knelt down again, this time addressing all 4 children. I need to ask you something very important, he said gently. Have any strangers been asking you questions about me or your mommy? The children exchanged glances, and Lucas observant. Lucas nodded slowly. There was a man at the playground yesterday, he whispered. He knew our names. Celeste's blood turned to ice. What man? What did he look like? He had dark hair and a nice smile. He said he was a friend of our daddy's. Detective Torres was already on her radio, calling for backup. Damien pulled Celeste aside, his face grim with realization. This isn't just about the company anymore, he said quietly. If Pierce has been watching the children... Truth in the shadows, the emergency bunker beneath Cross Industries. Headquarters was designed for terrorist attacks and natural disasters, not family reunions. But with the children safely hidden at Grace's sister's farm and the media circus reaching fever pitch, it was the only place Damien trusted completely. Banks of monitors displayed stock prices falling in real time, news channels dissecting every angle of the scandal, and security feeds from around the city. The vote passed, Marcus announced grimly as he entered the secure room. 6-6. With Wheeler casting the deciding vote, you're suspended pending a full investigation into corporate misconduct. Damien absorbed the blow without flinching. In the span of 48 hours, he'd lost his company, his reputation, and nearly 2 decades of work. But sitting across from Celeste in the dim light of the bunker, watching her analyze surveillance footage with Detective Torres, he realized he'd gained something infinitely more valuable. Sir, came a voice from the communications station. Hannah Mills from Tech Tribune is on line 3. She says she has information about Jonathan Pierce. Hannah Mills, one of the few investigative journalists in tech media who couldn't be bought. If she was calling, it meant she'd found something significant. Put her through, Damien ordered. Hannah's voice crackled through the speakers. Damien. I've been digging into the Pierce situation since the story broke. What I found goes deeper than corporate sabotage. How deep? Pierce didn't disappear 2 years ago. He's been operating through shell companies, quietly acquiring shares in Cross Industries competitors. But more than that, he's been building a network of corporate insiders, feeding information to your rivals and positioning himself for a hostile takeover. Detective Torres looked up from her laptop. Ms. Mills, this is Detective Torres, NYPD. Do you have evidence linking Pierce to the current media campaign? I have financial records showing payments from Pierce's shell companies to 3 different paparazzi agencies, 2 tabloid reporters, and a private investigation firm that specializes in corporate espionage. The payments started 3 months ago, right around the time Mrs. Romano bought her plane tickets back to New York. Celeste's face went pale. He's been tracking me. All this time, I thought I was protecting my children by staying away, but he knew exactly where I was. There's more, Hannah continued. I found the original source files for those photographs from 5 years ago. Pierce commissioned them from a digital effects studio in Prague. The metadata shows they were created 6 months before the alleged affair even happened. The room fell silent except for the hum of electronics. 6 months of planning to destroy a marriage, a life, a family. Why? Celeste whispered. I go to such elaborate lengths. Because, said a familiar voice from the bunker's entrance, I deserved everything you had and you were too blind to see it. Everyone spun toward the voice. Jonathan Pierce stood in the doorway, impeccably dressed despite being a fugitive, flanked by 2 men in expensive suits who were clearly not law enforcement. How did you get in here? Marcus demanded, already reaching for the security alarm. The same way I got access to your systems 5 years ago, the same way I've been watching your every move for months. You always underestimated me, Damien. All of you did. Detective Torres had her hand on her weapon, but Pierce raised his hands in mock surrender. No need for violence, Detective. I'm here to make a deal.
Us.
There's no deal, Damien said, his voice deadly calm. You destroyed my marriage, stole 5 years of my children's lives, and tried to steal my company. The only place you're going is prison. Pierce laughed, the sound echoing off the concrete walls. Prison? For what? Corporate espionage? The statute of limitations has run out, creating fake photographs? They were clearly marked as digital artwork. Anyone who authenticated them properly would have discovered that. Your own security team failed to do their due diligence. What about stalking my children? Celeste stood, fury radiating from every line of her body. I never touched them. I simply observed them in public places, which is perfectly legal. And profitable. Did you know Lucas is left-handed just like his father? That Sophie has the same analytical mind? That Emma hums when she's nervous, just like you used to. Casual intimacy of his knowledge was more terrifying than any direct threat. What do you want, Pierce? Damien asked. What I've always wanted, what should have been mine from the beginning. Pierce moved into the room, his bodyguards remaining by the door. Do you remember our first year at MIT? You were brilliant, yes, but I was the one with vision. I was the one who saw the potential in artificial intelligence when everyone else was focused on basic software. But you had something I didn't. What? Charm. The ability to make people believe in you, invest in you, trust you. I became your friend, your partner, thinking we'd build something together. But you always saw me as the junior partner, didn't you? Always made the final decisions, always got the credit. Marcus stepped forward. You were a 50-50 partner in Pierce Cross Technologies. You made millions. Millions. Pierce's composure cracked for the first time, while Damien made billions. While he got the magazine covers, the keynote speeches, the beautiful wife who should have been mine. The truth hit Celeste like a physical blow. You were in love with me? I was obsessed with you. From the moment Damien introduced us, I knew you were exactly what I needed to complete my vision. Beautiful, intelligent, connected to all the right social circles. But you only had eyes for him. So you decided to destroy us both, Detective Torres said, pieces falling into place. I decided to take what was rightfully mine. It's the company, the reputation, the life. Celeste was supposed to turn to me after Damien betrayed her trust. I had it all planned. I'd be the shoulder to cry on, the friend who believed her innocence, the man who could give her everything Damien had taken away. Except I ran instead, Celeste said. Yes, you ran. And took my leverage with you. Pierce's eyes glittered with 5 years of accumulated rage. But now you're back, and I have a new plan, much simpler this time. He pulled out a tablet showing them a live feed from what looked like a rural farmhouse. Celeste's heart stopped as she recognized the location Grace's sister's farm, where her children were supposed to be safe. My associates are currently visiting a lovely farm upstate. The children are quite well, playing in the garden with their nanny. They have no idea that their safety depends entirely on their parents' cooperation. If you hurt them, Damien? Started forward, but Pierce's bodyguards moved to block him. I won't hurt them. I'm not a monster, Damien. I'm a businessman. I have a very simple business proposition. Name it, Celeste said immediately. Damien signs over his remaining shares in Cross Industries to me, all 47% of his personal holdings. In exchange, the children remain safe. I disappear forever, and you can live happily ever after with your reunited family. And if I refuse, Pierce's smile was cold as winter. Then I released the video I have of Mrs. Romano meeting secretly with Richard Blackwood yesterday, a meeting that never happened. Of course, but the digital effects technology has improved remarkably in 5 years. The world will believe she's been working with your enemies all along, that this entire reunion was a setup to destroy you completely. Your children will grow up knowing their mother was branded a traitor, and you'll lose everything anyway. The brilliant cruelty of it was breathtaking. Even if they could eventually prove the video was fake, the damage would be done. Celeste would be destroyed, the children would suffer, and Pierce would still have what he wanted. You have 1 hour to decide, Pierce continued. After that, I implement Plan B, which is considerably less pleasant for everyone involved. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Detective Torres. Any attempt to contact law enforcement will result in immediate implementation of Plan B. My associates have very specific instructions about protecting their employer's interests. After Pierce left, the bunker fell into stunned silence. Hannah? Mills's voice crackled through the speakers. Did you get all of that recorded? Every word, Detective Torres confirmed. But it won't be enough for an arrest. He was careful not to make any explicit threats that would constitute kidnapping or extortion. So what do we do? Marcus asked. Damien was staring at the monitors, showing his company's stock price, his life's work being dismantled in real time. But when he looked at Celeste, his decision was already made. We give him what he wants. No, Celeste said immediately. Damien, you can't sacrifice everything you've built for my family. Yes, I can. I should have done it 5 years ago. There has to be another way. Detective Torres cleared her throat. Actually, there might be. Mr. Cross, how quickly? Can you liquidate your personal assets? Why? Because I think Mr. Pierce just made a critical error. So focused on your company's shares that he's forgotten about the most valuable asset you have. Which is... Torres smiled grimly. The recorded confession of a man admitting to corporate fraud, identity theft, stalking, and conspiracy. Hannah, how fast can Tech Tribune publish a story? With this kind of evidence? 20 minutes. And Mr. Cross, how many of your business? Associates would be very interested in acquiring a brilliant but unstable competitor who's just exposed himself as completely untrustworthy. Legacy Reborn. The story broke at exactly 3:47 p.m., sending shockwaves through the tech world faster than any viral video. Hannah Mills's article, titled The 5-Year Con, How Jonathan Pierce Orchestrated Tech's Biggest Fraud, hit Tech Tribune's homepage with the force of a digital earthquake. Within minutes, it was trending on every social platform, shared by industry leaders, and picked up by major news networks worldwide. In the bunker, Damien watched the story spread across his monitors. While Celeste paced anxiously behind him, Detective Torres coordinated with a tactical team positioned near the farmhouse, everyone holding their breath as they waited for Pierce's reaction. Stock prices are already responding, Marcus reported, his voice tight with tension. Cross Industries is up 12% in the last 10 minutes. Stellar Dynamics is in free fall. Pierce's phone call came exactly 18 minutes after publication. You always were too clever for your own good. His voice came through the speakers. But the earlier confidence was gone, replaced by barely controlled rage. Did you really think a news article would stop me? I think the truth has a way of catching up with people, Damien replied calmly. Your business associates are already distancing themselves. Richard Blackwood just publicly denied any connection to you. The board members you bought are claiming they were deceived. None of that matters if I still have what you want most. About that, Detective Torres interjected, her voice professional but sharp. Mr. Pierce, this is Detective Torres. I should inform you that kidnapping charges carry a minimum sentence of 20 years in federal prison. Pierce's laugh was bitter. Kidnapping? I haven't kidnapped anyone. The children are free to leave anytime they want. Of course, they're 4 years old and 50 miles from the nearest town, so I doubt they'll get very far. It was a technicality, but a clever one. Pierce had positioned himself just outside the legal definition of kidnapping while maintaining complete control. What do you want now? Celeste asked, her voice steady, despite her fear. The same thing I've always wanted, but the price has gone up. Damien doesn't just sign over his shares, he publicly admits that you were guilty 5 years ago, that your return was part of an elaborate scheme to destroy Cross Industries from within, that the children aren't even his. The cruelty of the demand took their breath away. Pierce wanted to destroy not just Damien's business, but their families. Future, never, Damien said immediately. Then I guess we're at an impasse. Your children are perfectly safe for now, but winter is coming, and this old farmhouse gets quite cold at night. I wonder how long 4-year-olds can survive in, Mr. Pierce, a new voice interrupted Grace, the nanny speaking from the farmhouse. I think you should know that the children aren't here anymore. The silence that followed was deafening. What do you mean they're not there? Pierce's voice cracked with the first hint of panic. Well, sir, when those men arrived this morning claiming to be your associates, I thought it was strange. You see, I've been a nanny for 30 years, and I know a threat when I see one. So I called my sister last night and arranged for a little insurance. Detective Torres was grinning now, pieces falling into place. Grace continued with the patient tone of someone explaining something obvious to a child. My sister used to work for the FBI, you know. Tired now, but she still has connections. Those men who've been watching the house all day, they're not your associates anymore? And the children? They've been safe at a different location since dawn. That's impossible, Pierce snarled. My men reported. Your men reported what? They saw children playing in the garden, a nanny cooking lunch, normal daily activities. They just didn't realize they were watching my sister's grandchildren, not the cross quadruplets. In the bunker, Celeste sank into a chair, relief flooding through her. Damien closed his eyes, silently thanking whatever instinct had led him to trust Grace with his children's lives. You see, Mr. Pierce, Detective Torres added, while you were focused on corporate warfare, we were handling this like the criminal investigation it always should have been. FBI agents have been in position around that farmhouse for 6 hours. Your associates are currently in federal custody. The monitors showed Pierce's location still in his Manhattan penthouse, probably believing he was safe in his ivory tower. But red dots were converging on the building from all directions as federal agents moved into position. This isn't over, Pierce said, but his voice lacked conviction. Actually, it is. Hannah Mills interjected from the conference call.
House.
Jonathan, I have a final question for my follow-up article. When did you first realize that you'd lost? I haven't lost anything. You've lost everything. Your business empire was built on fraud. Every legitimate company will drop you. Your personal reputation is destroyed. No one will trust you again. Your freedom is about to end. Federal agents are probably at your door right now. Woman you were obsessed with? She's about to rebuild her life with the man she actually loves? As if summoned by Hannah's words. The sound of splintering wood came through Pierce's phone connection, followed by authoritative voices shouting federal agents. The line went dead. Detective Torres stood up, removing her earpiece. Ladies and gentlemen, Jonathan Pierce is officially no longer our problem. 2 hours later, the farmhouse was swarming with FBI agents, local police, and media crews documenting the end of what news outlets were already calling the Pierce conspiracy. But in a quiet corner of the garden, away from the chaos for children, played on a tire swing while their parents watched. Damien sat on the porch steps, still processing the magnitude of what had unfolded. Emma was showing him a flower she'd picked, explaining its colors with the serious attention only a 4-year-old could bring to such matters.
Ow.
Noah was demonstrating his airplane moves, complete with sound effects.
Oh.
Lucas had overcome his shyness enough to sit beside his father, and Sophie was asking questions about everything from why there were so many cars to whether they would see him again tomorrow. Will you? Celeste asked, settling beside him on the steps. See them tomorrow, I mean? If you'll let me? Every day, if you'll let me. She was quiet for a moment, watching their children play in the golden afternoon light. 5 years ago, I thought you didn't trust me enough to fight for our marriage. Today, you risked everything you'd built to fight for our family. Today I remembered what was worth fighting for. The company will recover or it won't. Margaret Wheeler called while you were talking to the FBI. The board is voting to reinstate me tomorrow. And the Zenith merger is back on the table. But honestly, Celeste, I don't care about any of that right now. What do you care about? Damien looked at Sophie, who was carefully building a tower of stones, her tongue poking out in concentration just like her mother used to do. I care about not missing another day of their lives. I care about earning their trust and your forgiveness. I care about being the father they deserve and the husband you once believed I could be. What if I said you don't need to earn my forgiveness? What if I said that seeing you choose our children over your company, seeing you trust me enough to risk everything on my word, what if I said that was enough? He turned to look at her fully, hardly daring to hope. What are you saying? Saying that maybe we've both learned something in these 5 years. You've learned that some things are more valuable than business success. I've learned that I'm stronger than I thought, that I can protect our children and fight for what I believe in. And maybe if we're both willing to try, we can build something better than what we had before, not the fairy tale we thought. We wanted when we were young, but something real, something that can survive betrayal and separation and corporate warfare and still come out stronger. Before Damien could answer, Noah ran over, airplane in hand. Daddy, will you play with us? The word came so naturally from his son's lips, as if Damien had been part of their lives all along instead of absent for 5 years. He looked at Celeste, who nodded with tears in her eyes. Yes, he said, standing and taking Noah's hand. I'll play with you every day. As the 4 children surrounded him, chattering and laughing, and treating him like the father he was learning to become, Damien realized that Pierce had been wrong about everything. Love wasn't something you could steal or manipulate or orchestrate. It wasn't about deserving or earning or proving yourself worthy. Love was Sophie trusting him to catch her when she jumped off the tire swing. It was Lucas shyly offering to share his cookie. It was Emma insisting he needed to smell every flower in the garden. It was Noah's absolute confidence that his daddy would always be there to play airplanes. And love was Celeste, watching him with their children, smiling the same smile that had captured his heart a decade ago. 6 months later, the Cross family made headlines again, but for entirely different reasons. The wedding was small, private, held in the garden of the same farmhouse where their reunion had been completed. Grace served as both wedding planner and the children's guardian during the ceremony, while Detective Torres, now a close family friend, officiated,